and what we're also observing is that the SLTE doesn't necessarily need to sit, right by the beach. You have the PFE, and in some of the newer deployments, we're starting to see the SLTE move into a carrier neutral data center. That neutrality is extremely important. And that's where, you have, if as a data center operator, you can build your interconnection infrastructure on neutrality, attract subsea cables, you have a very good recipe for building that interconnection system.
Okay. What we see in China is that the big cloud players, particularly Ali and Tencent, and more recently ByteDance, have been doing exactly what AWS and Microsoft and Google have been doing in other parts of the world, where they require big scale, they prefer to own it and develop it and create it themselves. The interesting dimension, though, is that for those larger dominant players, the speed of growth and the demand increases that they're facing in the Chinese market, as we were hearing from our friends in China Unicom a little bit earlier, the speed of growth often means that you can't have the capacity when you want it. And that's where external parties who've already got the power and the fiber and the land combinations, which have just as many complications as in other parts of the world, but in China today, power is the absolute key to whether you can use a site or not. So often those big guys will collaborate with external counterparties, organizations of a similar shape to ourselves. The interesting other dimension, though, is the next level down. If you look at tomorrow's wannabes, the ones who want to be the next Ali or Tencent, which might be a Kuaishou, or it might be a kind of uCloud or others of that sort, Meituan, some of the big app providers, some of the big cloud providers, many of them just don't have the internal capacity to have developed the learning that Ali and Tencent have done. So therefore, they will work with expert organizations. But I've no question that over a period of a short while, each of them will move to that same position as Ali and Tencent as well. So we need to be there to meet burst need. We need to be there to provide reference quality global standards. But we mustn't forget that they will always prefer to do it themselves if ultimately they can.
Perhaps what I see are consistent themes in people thinking about what they want to monetize from 5G. Clearly entertainment and gaming, right? I think every operator has got a massive entertainment strategy now. And you'll see in the Philippines, for example, you'd argue that Globe and PLDT are more digital, kind of asset managers now. So not asset, but digital kind of, managers now than anything else. Private networks, I think, also seem to attract a lot of interest. Fixed wireless access, for which quite a number, the Philippines, for example, has really taken 5G as a fixed wireless option for now. I guess, some of the more sophisticated kind of applications outside of pure, access, that's more difficult to call, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's to be seen whether you really can work in an ecosystem for autonomous driving and all the other stuff that people talk about, right? But I think providing sensibly fast access with low latency for things that are relatively simple to do, but you do better, or you can do for yourself in a private network, might be the more likely use cases that have, some potential.
In terms of your question, I would say instead of focusing so much on the trends, I would tend to focus on what our technology and product teams are doing, which is literally to blaze a path for network as a service, facilitating those elements of connectivity and automation. Increasingly, what we're seeing is that no matter what we want to do in the future, we want to do so in an automated fashion. And automation means on demand. So that means not just being able to click to get to something, but to be able to bill for it only for what is consumed and not unnecessarily, which provides new product opportunities and new thought processes. Both the automation component as well as the on-demand component are meaningful. In order to do that, you need to be thinking across the board, from the end user application use case and all the way back to how you correlate your BSS and OSS relationships to the evolving partner ecosystem community in order to facilitate what's commonly referred to as platform economics.
So just the sheer weight of innovation and investment is pushing through lots of what I call solutions looking for problems to solve. Yeah, and that's an interesting problem to have, because all of a sudden customer experience is no longer a function of smart software with DevOps engineers that you build and just render. The quality depends on how it interoperates across the infrastructure. I call it digital infrastructure, which telcos have been solving for the last 25 years. And those infrastructure has been what I call built to last. Designers built infrastructure for 50 years, 100 years sometimes, whereas this new infrastructure has to be built to change.
That explains, actually, we need to think about this completely differently. Softwarization isn't me as a network engineer building software to do what I do. Softwarization is letting the enterprise do what they want to do in a self-service manner, and then dramatically impacting everything you do inside your organization to accommodate the way the user wants to use your network, not the way that you use your network on behalf of the customer.
But finding talent, especially talent that has the right context, because it's not just about writing code, it's about understanding what the purpose of that is and how customers will want to use that and use that capability. So yeah, it's an ongoing challenge, but again, that's not going to, regardless of what happens in the Bay Area with, you know, how many ever layoffs occur and stuff, there's still going to be a demand for talented software developers and talented software developers in particular languages, as well as with particular kind of context and background. That's where it gets incredibly challenging. So I would say for us, at least fortunately, we've really seen some of our talent kind of grow internally, and people that have been a part of the organization in one area have an interest in it and kind of grown into it. And then that context is built in. So that kind of farming system, if you will, has been very helpful for us. But our scale is relatively small compared to, let's say, other organizations that have, you know, maybe thousands of developers or something. So it's not the same. You can't do that at that scale, right? But yeah, talent's a huge thing. And then honestly, actually, not just the writing of the code, but the people that are managing and leading those teams, especially across the other parts of the organization that depend upon the software, that use it every day, that really are that user base internally at least. You have to have the right attitude and the right kind of culture in that regard as well.